You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's July 12th, 2021. Well, Basel III has come, and it's been greeted with a big yawn. It has more loopholes than, I don't know, maybe a federal statute dealing with the budget. What's the real significance? Is there any real significance? Well, our good friend Rob Kirby of KirbyAnalytics.com is with us now. And if you got a question, send it to kl@kerrylutz.com. So, Rob, what's the deal with Basel III? Is it the end of the world as we know it, as that song goes? Or is it the more things change, the more they stay the same? What do you think the significance is?
Oh, the significance of Basel III is that we are going to see a new rule which is on its surface supposed to bring transparency to the metals markets, or let's just say the paper metal markets. And in fact, what it's going to do is make any opposition to the existing status quo impossible, because what this new rule does is it exempts the paper players, who are affectionately referred to as the gold clearers in London, and they are going to be free to carry on their merry way, naked shorting paper metal in unallocated form till the cows come home. And should anyone wish to counter them in the paper markets, they will be prevented from doing so because of the new legislation, namely the Basel III arrangement. So instead of bringing transparency to the metals markets, this only cements and guarantees that the status quo will continue indefinitely.
So it's one of those things, like they pass a law and its true intent is to actually accomplish the opposite of what they set out to do?
Absolutely, Kerry. And it cements their iron grip on the control of our price discovery mechanism, which predominantly for us in the Western world is COMEX and or the LBMA.
So where does this leave us here? Is any change going to come about from this, Rob?
In my view, what we don't need are new rules. Existing commodities law should have been more than sufficient if regulators did their job to bring an end to surreptitious manipulation and suppression of metals prices through the paper markets. But instead, all we've done is we've been hoodwinked into believing that there was going to be an attempt at transparency, when the complete opposite is the true intent of this new rule. You see, Kerry, we need new regulators. We don't need new rules. We need regulators that enforce existing rules and live up to the spirit of existing rules, instead of making new rules which mean anybody wishing to oppose the status quo is quelled. But that's where we are.
Right. So we've been conned yet again. But why would anybody believe this, Rob? I always said I never believed that it was going to amount to any substantive change.
Well, you're right, Kerry, in one respect, that regulators will continue to not regulate. But what we will see as a result of this, the physical metals markets remain very well bid and remain extremely tight. And there isn't enough supply for existing demand. And what that tells me is that the premiums being paid for physical will continue to expand and become bigger.
Yeah. So we have this thing called the physical floor. A number of commentators out there have called it. because you can only drive down the price so far, and then the physical floor kicks in and it's going to make it go higher, right?
Well, it's either that or there will be no availability.
Yeah.
So the cure for low prices in metals are low prices. And that can only be satisfied or cleared when the price rises. And the way it's going to be left, I'm afraid, due to this new legislation, should only hasten the increase in premiums being paid for physical metal.
Right. And so it sounds like you were never taken in by Basel III.
No, I've stated to a number of people who asked me months ago what my feelings were about Basel III and if it would indeed be a game changer. And I said to them, no, under no circumstances do I think this will be a game changer, because the powers that be, or the people that control the metals markets, will be granted waivers or exemptions to the new rules. And I said, isn't it amazing, Kerry? I said that over a month and a half ago, a couple of luminaries in the marketplace, and that, lo and behold, that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
How did I know?
How did you know? I mean, are you psychic here or but no, I'm being facetious, because I never believed it was going to do anything either, because that's like electing a new government and expecting a revolution. When you continue the old system's main interest, main purpose, like any other living form of life, any other life form on the planet, its first and foremost preoccupation is its own survival, right? And then and then it worries about everything else. Like when you wake up in the morning, you're hungry, all you're thinking about is eating to perpetuate your survival. And once that thirst, that hunger has been quenched, then you can worry about taking over the world, right?
Well, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, you and me both. Maybe we'll have breakfast together one day, and we'll combine our plans here. Yeah, like I just knew there would be some reason it didn't get implemented, or it couldn't be implemented, or it's like a Jackie Mason comedy skit. You know, Jackie Mason, it's like, I could have done this and I should have done that, but I didn't do this and I didn't do that. But if only I had done this or that, things would have been different.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, but didn't.
Yeah. So what's next? What's the next continuation of the con?
Well, the money continues to be printed, and the money needs to find a home. And isn't it amazing, Kerry, that despite record debt in America, record new issuance of U.S. government debt, and record amounts of global participants liquidating their existing U.S. government debt, the 10-year bond, despite record inflation rates reported very recently, the 10-year bond has rallied from, call it 1.70 down to a current 1.35. And boy, isn't it amazing that Economics 101 told me that when inflation heated up and when money was being printed, that bonds are supposed to be under the control of people known as the bond vigilantes. And they're supposed to sell bonds and make interest rates rise to bring discipline back to the people doing the profligate spending. But that doesn't occur.
Yeah. Where are the bond vigilantes when you need them here, Rob? I've been very skeptical that they ever existed. It's kind of like those people on the commitment of traders reports, the speculators. They're always wrong. They always lose money. They've been losing money since I ever heard of the COT, and they continually lose money, and yet they're happy losing money. Do you know any speculators like that? Because I don't.
Don't just survive. Thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Lumina Gold, ticker symbol LUM on the Toronto Venture and LMGDF on the OTC, is yet another of legendary mining investor Ross Beatty's Lumina Group. It's advancing the largest primary gold deposit in Ecuador. The resource is estimated to contain 16.7 million ounces of gold and 2.2 billion pounds of copper at just $7 US per ounce gold equivalent. It trades at an incredible 13% of its net present value. More good news is on the way with an updated PEA study expected in Q2 of 2020. It has unparalleled infrastructure. There's grid power to camp with plentiful, inexpensive hydropower available. It's close to 2 ports and is just 8 kilometers from a paved highway. Water is plentiful. It's at low elevation, and the closest community, which is very supportive of Lumina's effort, is just a 7-kilometer ride. With all this going for it, it's likely to follow the typical Ross Beatty formula, which means big returns to shareholders. Find out more and sign up for notifications at luminagold.com. That's Lumina, Lumina gold.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Well, you see, Kerry, actually, I have a slightly different take on the bond vigilantes than you. I believe that they did exist, just like dodo birds used to exist, but they are extinct now. And their extinction was brought about by an organization affectionately known as the Plunge Protection, and more specifically, the resources that are funneled into the black hole that I refer to as Exchange Stabilization Fund, a secretive adjunct of the U.S. Treasury, whose sole mission after being created was to perpetuate the use of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. So it is within their mandate to make bonds look like they are big, no matter what the conditions are, and therefore making the underlying currency, namely the dollar, look strong and worthy as the world's reserve currency. And let's just say that in the current environment, the dollar is neither worthy nor strong of being the world's reserve currency.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So they're kind of opposite sides of the same coin, right?
Pretty much.
Right. They're obviously not real, because were they real, we'd know about it. So
Kerry, if bond vigilantes truly existed, and if economics 101 still applied, interest rates would be higher, and the dollar would be weaker, metals prices would be higher, and the equity markets would be lower. But every major market is acting in a completely counterintuitive way, the way in which economics 101 would suggest it should.
Right.
So maybe we need to burn all of our economics books, because the economics training I got in university does not apply to today's world.
Yeah, you and me both here. You and me both.
See, when I was growing up, Kerry, there was something they used to refer to as the new math. Well, in today's world, we have the new economics, which means you throw out everything you learned, or you turn it upside down, and that gives you a good read on where things are headed, not necessarily at all where they should be headed.
Right. Yeah. Well, what is going to happen that's going to change the status quo here, Rob? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, metals still are the Achilles heel of the powers that be, in that when the premiums for physical reach an extreme that people can no longer tolerate, I believe there will be something akin to a pitchfork revolution. And these false purveyors of price discovery will be shut down, even if by force.
Yeah, well, it can't happen a minute too soon, but we've been waiting a long time for this, haven't we?
Well, in the meantime, Kerry, we do have the cryptos, and the cryptos, due to blockchain protocols, cannot be they cannot be counterfeited in the same way that precious metal can be naked shorted into the ground.
Yeah.
And this presents a very, very large problem for regulators and the keepers of the status quo. And this is why they are so completely scared of cryptocurrencies. It's the very fact. You see, if regulators want to complain about the price of Bitcoin or Ethereum, there really is no one to call because we have a centralized distributed ledger, blockchain protocols, which prevents the double, triple, quadruple selling. You can't sell a Bitcoin 100 times over like you can sell every ounce of gold in your depository 100 or 200 or 300 times.
Right.
So, and that's the power of decentralized distributed ledger in the cryptoverse. You see, and any mention of a sovereign or central bank wishing to enter the crypto market, they only push forward models where we have centralized, under their control, issuance, which in fiat terms, it's like a do-over. And with the powers that be having destroyed our current financial edifice, my guess is any proposition they put forward to effectively get a do-over in digital terms will be rejected and will never, ever gain traction, which means that in the digital realm, we're stuck with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and their derivatives.
Right.
All decentralized.
Yeah. Well, that actually makes some sense there, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it poses a huge, huge problem and a challenge for the powers that be, because the imperative of the existing fiat regime, due to the magic of compounding, is that the amount of money being created this year will grow next year, just as the amount of money created this year is more than the amount created last year. And this is a spiral that I'm going to call it a death spiral, that the keepers of the fiat currency know they are confronted, which is why they are so manic in their attempts to control the appearances, namely a rapidly rising price of precious metal as reflected on the paper exchanges, as evidenced by bond yields, which should be backing up. Instead, rates are literally being forced down because debt is being monetized with off-book money. And the amount of money in existence far exceeds what is publicly admitted by regulatory agencies. So we have a potential here for a really, really big crack-up boom and a very massive hyperinflation, because the amount of money in the system far exceeds what is admitted or what is reported.
Yeah, I felt that way for a long time, that we weren't getting the whole truth. Imagine that. Isn't that shocking, huh? To not get the whole truth, Rob?
Well,
who would think
the
such
whole
a
truth
thing?
And nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yeah, so help us God, right? Yeah.
Well, we're going to need help from somebody, Kerry.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah, well, I've just felt for a long time we're not getting the story, and that's just the way it is, and not much you can do about it. But hey, Rob, hey, you're doing a real service explaining this, and I'm sure you're not happy being right. It would have been a lot better for the country, the world, if you had been wrong. But unfortunately, I guess the patterns are there, and you ignore them at your peril, right?
Truer words have never been spoken.
Well, it's always great to have you on again. The place to go is kirbyanalytics.com. Highly recommended, must reading, and it's great, as always. It's great to have you back on, and we will talk to you again real soon. If you've got a question for Rob, why don't you send me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com, and go sign up for a newsletter, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Rob, again, thanks. We'll talk to you again real soon.
It's been my pleasure, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.